I almost didn't walk in, but then I saw how you looked at me.
Is she lost or just cleaning up after dinner? Someone tell the kitchen that their help went outside. Wait, she's the date? You had to be kidding. Zariah King heard everything. She was still on the ground, with one knee scraped and bleeding, and mud streaking over both legs like battle scars. Her mother's old favorite dress, which was red, was drenched through and sticking to her like a wet napkin. The hem was already ripped. Hair is tangled. Shaking hands. Burning face. She had to take 2 buses, borrow a purse, and be braver than she wanted to acknowledge to get here. And then this happened. As she crossed the street, a delivery truck plunged into a puddle of construction water and hit her in the chest. She fell down, face first, with her palms sliding and her dignity breaking. A bunch of white, loud, and confident college kids were laughing across the street. Take out your phones. Recording. One of them really did zoom in. She wanted to go away, right there, into the road. But she could still see him through the thick glass of Swan's Garden, Savannah's most expensive restaurant. The date was blind. Thorne Blake. Perfect hair. Posture is relaxed. He had a glass of calm water in his hand. Looking around the room. Looking at his watch. Waiting. For her. For this, the valet's eyes were on Zariah. From the inside of the host. From the women at the table in the corner who had been whispering since she got there. She should have gone back, called it off, acted like she missed the bus. But she didn't. This isn't just a bad date. This is a story about Black people. And not the type that people talk about. The kind that wants to be seen. Heard. Got it. Welcome to Hidden Worth, where we don't tell stories that aren't true. We tell the truths that people keep to themselves. Stay with us if you've ever had to show your worth. In front of individuals who wanted you to fail, what Blake does next is leave her and everyone else watching utterly speechless. Zariah King's morning began in an apartment on the 3rd floor with paint that was peeling, and a front door that got stuck when it rained. The air conditioner made more noise than it cooled, and the smell of fried plantains from the night before still hung in the air. She lived with her mother, Amira, who was a waiter at the Willow House, one of Savannah's oldest and most prestigious restaurants, for more than 20 years. Amira never missed a shift. She carefully straightened her uniforms, smiled at even the rudest customers, and came home with sore feet with stories that Zariah had heard as bedtime stories. They didn't have a lot, but what they did have was clean, honest, and full of love. Zariah was 19 years old, had brilliant eyes, was attractive, and was determined not to let the world tell her tale. She was the kind of girl who always had books in her tote bag and a little notebook, poems in her pocket. She worked part-time at the library in her town and was halfway through getting her associate degree in early childhood education. Someday, she hoped to be a school counselor. She was, in every way, her mother's daughter, strong, beautiful, and quietly fierce. Blake Thorne woke up in a king-sized bed with Egyptian cotton sheets and a view of the Savannah River. He lived 15 miles away, but it felt like a completely different planet. His room was as big as all of Zariah's apartment. Samuel Thorne, his father, was a real estate tycoon. Patricia, his mother, used to be a beauty queen, but is now a socialite. Blake grew up behind gates, went to private schools, and spent his vacations in Europe. Everything surrounding him was carefully chosen, designed, and airbrushed to look great. But it turns out that being perfect may be stifling. Blake was 20 years old and a sophomore at a well-known institution in Boston. He was home for the summer. He was savvy enough not to trust anything his family said. He could feel the fissures under the marble, the kind act of performing. The way the personnel were treated like they didn't exist unless they made a mistake. He was sick of it all. He didn't know who had set up the blind date, probably his cousin trying to loosen him up. But when he saw the name Zariah King in the message, something clicked. King. He knew that name. When he was a youngster, he remembered a woman in the Willow House kitchen giving him a loving grin, a knee that got scraped. Someone gave him a glass of orange juice without saying a word while he was crying. It couldn't be the same family, could it? But something inside him wanted it to be. Blake was lacking something real, even if he had a lot of money. And Zariah had never lost it, no matter how hard she tried. Today, two lives that were quite different and far apart were about to meet. One shaped by wealth, one made of grit. Both were looking for something more than what the world had given them, and neither of them was ready for what they would find. Zariah walked through the glass doors of Swan's Garden with her chin up and shoulders back, even if every nerve in her body told her to turn around and escape. The air changed as soon as she walked in. The central air and high ceilings didn't only make it colder. It was the way they looked. The front table stopped talking. The hostess looked at Zariah's damaged dress for a second before quickly looking away. Her locks were still wet at the ends, and she was still moist. The mud had mostly hardened into dull brown spots on her shoes and skirt, but there was no way to hide it, or the cuts on her arms, or how close her pride was to breaking. She murmured softly to the hostess, who looked like she had never spilled anything in her life. I'm here to meet someone. The woman's voice was silky but harsh. And what is your name, miss? Zariah King. The hostess then looked across the dining room at a table near the window. He's over there, she murmured, then leaned down and whispered, just low enough so it wasn't official, but just loud. Enough for Zariah to hear every word. Didn't know the help was off tonight. Zariah's jaw tightened, but she didn't say anything. She wouldn't give the woman what she wanted. She could feel the voices behind her like shadows as she walked across the room. The sound of silverware scraping is getting slower. A man in a blue suit smiled. Someone said something quietly behind a menu. Someone else laughed. When she got to Blake's table, she didn't know if she wanted to sit down or disappear into the floor. As soon as Blake spotted her, he stood up. His eyes got bigger, but not because he was judging. Worry? What a surprise. It was hard to tell. Zariah? He said softly. She nodded, but not much. She muttered, I'm sorry I'm late. He answered, You're not. She turned away, ready to leave to use the bathroom, maybe to cry, maybe to run. But the way he pulled out her chair stopped her. He didn't seem ashamed. He seemed like he was meeting her for the first time. And that was something Zariah didn't see coming. After pulling out her chair, Blake didn't sit back down. He stayed there, not in the awkward way that most people do when they don't know what to say, but like he was giving her time to catch her breath. Letting her choose. Zariah sat down in the chair, not sure what to do. Still wet, still embarrassed, She clasped her hands tightly in her lap to hide the shaking. For a long time, Blake didn't say anything. Then he asked her in a voice that was low enough for only her to hear, "Are you okay?" Zariah nodded, but not much. It has been a strange day." "I can tell," he murmured, and the corners of his mouth turned up. A little, not in a mocking way. He was more impressed that she had come at all. Then came the moment that neither of them expected. Their server came up to them. A young woman with straight blonde hair, clean nails, and a pout that didn't fully go away when she smiled. Are you ready to order drinks?" she asked, staring at Zaria's dress with muck on it like it had hurt her feelings. Blake saw the expression, the sound, the smirk that goes with it. And something changed in him. He rose up again and turned to face the tables around them, many of which had been watching this whole time without them knowing. He cleared his throat once. "Hey," he said in a casual but serious way. "Just to be clear, this amazing woman sitting across from me? She's the person I'm going out with." Some people looked. And if anyone here feels the need to whisper, snicker, or judge her because of how she appears right now, well, you might want to think again. None of you would have come tonight if you had gone through half of what she just did. Literally. Be quiet. A shocked pause in the sound of talking. Zariah looked at him with wide eyes. He sat back down as if nothing had occurred. As if it weren't a scene, like he hadn't just stood up for her honor in front of everyone. The server blinked. Do you still want water?" Blake grinned and looked back at Zariah. "Yes, please, for both of us." Zariah finally let out a sigh when the server left. What was that?" Blake shrugged and spoke softly again. That was the least they could do. And for the first time that night, Zariah felt safe. She might not have needed to flee after all. The dinner had come, but neither of them had eaten it. Zariah was still too shaken up by what had happened before, and Blake seemed like he was thinking about something else. He looked at her like he was examining her, but not. It seemed more like he was attempting to remember something. He finally said it. "Your last name is King, right?" Zariah looked up from her plate, which she hadn't touched. "Yeah. Is your mom Amira King?" She straightened her shoulders. "She is. Why?" Blake sat back, stunned by his own gut feeling. "I thought so." Zariah inclined her head, not knowing if she should be ready or not. "I believe I met her once," Blake said, "a long time ago. My family used to throw this holiday party at our estate every year. It was too much, the whole thing, chandeliers, champagne towers, and more. I think I was 6 or 7. Zariah nodded slowly. Blake went on. "At one of those parties, I lost track of my parents. Panicked. Entered the kitchen, weeping. No one saw me. I stood there like a young boy with tears in his bow tie." Zariah's eyebrows went up, as she already knew where this was going. There was this woman in a brown outfit with a gold name tag. She didn't say anything, just knelt down, wiped my face, and offered me a glass of orange juice. I recall thinking she looked like a spell. Zariah's voice came out quieter than planned. "That sounds like my mom. She stuck with me until someone else came along. Did not beg for thanks or make a big deal out of it. Just showed up." The silence between them deepened. Not awkward, but reverent. Blake said, "I never forgot her. Not because she saved me or anything like that, but because she was the Only one in a house full of people who were supposed to notice me. Zariah blinked, the corners of her mouth pushing up just slightly. She still is like that, she claimed. Shows up no matter what. No matter if you deserve it or not. Blake smiled. Sounds like her daughter is like her. Zariah turned aside, but not before he saw a trace of pride in her. Her eyes. This night might not be as bad as it seemed at first. It was starting to seem like fate had a better plot in mind. It was easy to miss the click of expensive heels on marble because of the clinking of silverware and the mellow jazz coming from the speakers, until the room was quiet again. Zariah was the first to see it, a shift in the energy. The waiter's small change in posture, how the hostess at the front desk immediately straightened up a little taller. Then Blake's face stopped moving in the middle of a statement. A crisp, familiar voice sliced through the quiet murmur of the diner. "Blake," it said, "here you are." Zariah looked toward the direction of the sound. A tall woman with a cream coat and pearl earrings stood by their table. She was very well dressed. Her makeup was perfect, and her posture was like steel. She was classy in a way that only old Southern money could be. "Mom," Blake remarked in a monotone voice. Zariah's heart sank. Of course, Patricia Thorne. She didn't need to be introduced. Patricia didn't look at her son first. They headed right to Zariah. Scanning, doing math, making a decision. Zariah sat up straighter without meaning to. She was suddenly very conscious of the mud-stained hem of her dress, her scratched elbow, and the chipped nail paint. She had wanted to mend. Patricia looked back at Blake. "You didn't answer my texts. In an hour, we will have the Harvey dinner. Why are you—" As she waved vaguely toward Zariah, her voice slowed down, as if the fact that this girl was there messed with her social schedule. Blake's jaw got tight. "Mother, I'm on a date." Patricia's gaze went back to Zariah. "Is this what it is?" Blake said. "Her name is Zaria." "Yes, this is a date." Patricia's smile was tight and brittle. "I understand." She turned all the way around. Her voice was still lovely, but it had a hint of poison. "Was it Zariah? That's lovely. Your folks must be quite proud." Or, "Mother?" Zariah's back straightened. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Blake was already up. "Enough," he murmured in a calm but forceful voice. But Patricia was not done. "We've always told Blake to hang around with people who would help him in the future, not his past." Zariah got up too, her voice calm but steady. "You don't know anything about my past." Patricia's brows narrowed as she answered, "Oh, I know enough. Your mom worked for us, took care of us. This? It's nice, but it's not real." Blake got in between them. "Mom, go." For a brief moment, Patricia looked shocked. Her face then became rigid. "We'll talk later." She turned around and walked out without saying anything else. Zariah stood still, her chest rising and falling with feelings she hadn't yet named. Blake turned to her and spoke more softly. "I'm sorry." Zariah shook her head and blinked quickly. "Don't say sorry for her." And in that moment, with people all around her pretending not to look, she understood something. This was no longer merely a date. It was a test. And neither of them was willing to give up. By the time they went outside, it was raining again. There wasn't a strong rain, just a constant, soft drizzle that coated the walkways and made the air smell like wet stone and magnolia. Blake didn't grab an umbrella. Zariah didn't either. They walked in quiet for half a street, past the old section of Savannah where the storefronts glowed and the gas lamps flickered. The streets were calmer now that the restaurant's noise was behind them. There was nothing left but the sound of rain and two persons who had just been broken open in front. Zariah ultimately halted under a short awning in front of a bookstore that was closed. She crossed her arms over her chest, but not because she was cold. "I shouldn't have come," she remarked in a calm but forceful voice. This was all a mistake. Blake turned to her, his hair wet and his dress shirt starting to stick to his arms. "No, it wasn't." She turned her head aside and clenched her jaw. "You are right, your mom. We come from diverse places. She says that females like me and boys like you don't belong together. They shouldn't be in rooms like that. I know what it looks like when others judge your worth before you. Ever say a word?" "You think I don't?" Blake asked in a low voice. Zariah blinked. "You? Why? Because someone told you no to a vacation home once?" Blake didn't smile. "People acted like they cared about me for most of my life, but they really just wanted to know my last name. I was taught to sit still and appear nice, but never to ask questions. Because my parents value good manners over telling the truth. And the only time I ever felt safe in that house was in the kitchen with the other workers, with people who were there. Not the cash, just me." Zariah was now watching him intently. Blake remarked, "I'm not saying I know everything about your life. I don't. But I know how it feels to be thought less of. To be put in a box. To be told who you can and can't see." The rain had made the walkway around them darker, but neither of them moved. Zariah's voice was suddenly quieter. "You really do remember my mom?" he said, like it was yesterday. "She didn't say much. She didn't need to. She made me feel like a person. And when I saw you go through that door tonight, coated in dirt and shivering, but still walking, I saw her in you." Zariah's chest felt like it was moving. A letting go. A gentle unraveling. "I'm tired of running," she said in a low voice. "Then don't," Blake responded. "Let's walk this one out together." And just like that, they stood next to each other under the awning, wet, confused, and a little shattered. Not fixed, not done, but I get it. Zariah's face was all over the place by the next morning. It all began on TikTok, a shaky, zoomed-in 37-second video taken from across the street by one of the college guys who had laughed at her. The caption said, "A blind date that went wrong." Or right? Mud Girl comes into a 5-star restaurant as if she owns it. The video started with Zariah standing outside, coated in dirt and looking quite upset. The camera uncomfortably panned to show her walking across the dining room where people were whispering and smirking. Then the soundbite that cinched the deal came, "She's my date. If someone here has a problem with it, maybe you don't belong here." By lunchtime, it had been seen by more than 2 million people. The comments went crazy. Half of the internet cheered. This is how a real man looks. Black girl magic and a decent man? Yes, please. That girl is braver than most of us will ever know. But the other half wasn't nice. She knew what she was doing. Just wanted attention. It looks staged. No one really shows up like that. Another diversity stunt to make rich people look smart. Zariah witnessed everything. She didn't want to become famous. She didn't want to be a symbol. But now her picture appeared on Instagram pages with titles like Savannah Tea, Rich Kids Gone Soft, and even a conservative gossip blog that called her the Mud Queen. That day, she didn't leave the residence. She turned off the alerts. She got rid of her Twitter account. She didn't answer texts from people she hadn't talked to since middle school. But it wasn't the strangers who wounded the most. It was the stillness from the one person she wanted to hear from again, Blake. She gave up and closed the curtains by sundown. The knock came just as she was ready to log off for good. She opened the door and saw Blake standing there with two things, a bouquet of sunflowers and a paper bag, full of cookies from her favorite bakery. He didn't beg to come in. He didn't act like nothing had happened. He just said, "I saw the video. I saw it all." Zariah turned her head away, but he softly lifted her chin with one hand. "They don't get to tell you who you are," he remarked. "They don't even know you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I do." And all of a sudden, the hate, comments, and labels outside didn't seem as loud anymore. Because the world is enthralled with watching. Someone had finally decided to see her. That night, Zariah didn't get much sleep. Not because she was afraid, but because something inside her had changed. She was sick of hiding. She was sick of feeling like the public got to decide what her narrative meant. Before she ever spoke. The next morning, she made coffee in the little kitchen she shared with her mom and then sat down at the chipped dining table with her laptop. She didn't use TikTok. She didn't look at the remarks. She opened a blank document instead. She began to write. It wasn't showy. It wasn't smooth, but it was real. She told the complete tale, not the edited clip or the viral version. The truth. How she had saved enough for weeks to buy a frock. How she had been worried about the date. How the rain surprised her. The shame. The fear. The time she almost turned around. And then Blake's voice. The hand that didn't draw away. The benevolence that didn't have any strings attached. She put it on Medium. Then she put the link on her Instagram with a caption that said, "If you want to know me, you need to know the whole story. This is mine." Her post started to circulate within hours. This time, the comments were different, more focused, more like a person. "Thanks for letting me know about this. I could see myself in every phrase. You reminded me that dignity isn't about how we look, it's about how we act. This is the kind of story we should be telling." The next day, the paper in the area got in touch. Then, a host of a podcast. Then, a group of students from a local college asked her to talk about. She wasn't trying to get famous. She wasn't striving to stay famous. But as she went by the same bookshop from that rainy night, something caught her eye. A flyer in the window promoting an open mic night? What is the theme? Stand tall. Stories of showing up. Zariah grinned. She took out her notebook, which had poems and peaceful ideas in it, and put the flyer in her bag. She wasn't fully healed yet. But she wasn't hiding anymore. What had begun as a night of shame had turned into something else. Something more powerful. Because Blake might have stood up for her that night. But this? She was sticking up for herself. Zariah didn't hear Patricia Thorne's name again for 2 weeks. It occurred out of the blue on a Wednesday afternoon while she was putting picture books on the shelves at the library. "Miss King," her boss called from the front desk. "Someone is here. Claims they came to provide money?" Zariah frowned. She hadn't made any plans. She walked into the lobby, partly expecting to see a volunteer, maybe a parent from her literacy group. But it was her, Patricia Thorne, in crisp linen, a pearl necklace, and heels that didn't belong. On this side of town. She looked into Zariah's eyes, but this time there was no judgment in them. No looking down on people, just quietness. Before Zariah could say anything, Patricia remarked in a calm voice, "I won't." "Stay. This isn't a trip, it's just a delivery." Zariah didn't say anything. She was too shocked to say anything. Patricia pointed to a man in a gray suit behind her who was holding a little envelope and a folded note. She went on, "There is a donation being made to the program that helps kids learn to read. In the name of Amira King." Zariah's breath stopped. The name of her mother, not hers. Not a business or a charity. From her mother. Patricia answered, "I read the article." "Your post." Zariah, on the other hand, stayed quiet. Patricia's voice got softer as she said, "I could say a lot of things. Excuses, defenses. I've told myself most of them. But none of that matters." She gave the envelope to the librarian at the front desk. Then they gazed back at Zariah. "Say thank you to your mother for the juice of oranges and the elegance." And with that, Patricia Thorne turned around and left, just like she had come in, calm, polished, and absolutely still. But there was something about the way she stood as she went that made me feel more gentle. There was a check for $50,000 in the envelope, limited to the growth of the early reader area and a new weekend mentorship program, just like Zariah had always wanted to do. There was no press release, no public recognition, no strings, just a little word on the letterhead inside. "May every youngster who enters into this building be seen. May they be able to hear. In memory of a woman who always made people feel both. P.T." Zariah kept the message in her hands for a long time. It wasn't an apology, not out loud, but in some respects, it was more honest than anything else could be. She thought that people change. Not all the time, not right away. But there are occasions when people pay attention when someone says the truth out loud, really out loud. Even the ones you thought would never do it. Blake had dined at Michelin-starred restaurants all throughout Europe. He has drunk old wine on yachts and gone to fancy parties where the hors d'oeuvres cost more than a month's rent. But nothing had ever felt like this. He was sitting at a used dining table in a little apartment on the east side of Savannah. The ceiling fan ticked softly above him, and the walls were covered with family portraits and library reading charts. Amira King was preparing chicken in a cast-iron skillet across from him, just like she had for years. She was humming softly to herself. The fragrance of hot oil and seasoned flour permeated the room in a way that made me feel protected. Zariah was arranging the table to his right. She put a glass of sweet tea in front of him and smiled. It was one of those grins that came from the heart and didn't need cosmetics or beautiful lighting. "Have you ever put hot sauce on honey butter biscuits?" she asked. Blake smiled. "That sounds risky." "It is," Amira said from the stove. "But we like a little danger in this house." Everyone laughed, and the tension that had been there between Blake and Zariah's mother went away. When he first got there, Amira didn't say much. She just arched an eyebrow and nodded slowly, as if she were seeing something happen but hadn't made up her mind about how she felt yet. But today, as she brought over the food, fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, and biscuits that melted in your hand, she sat down with a warm look in her eyes. Blake looked around the table. There was no central piece, no cloth napkins, but there was something else, something more valuable. Grace. He talked more than he usually did, more listening, easier laughing. He talked to Amira about architecture and the homes he wanted to build, not to make money, but to help people. She told him stories about Savannah in the past and what it meant to stand up for yourself when no one else believed you should. Zoraya just observed them both, her eyes still full of that calm fire. This wasn't a storybook. There was no theatrical toast or violin music. Three folks from various backgrounds sharing food that had been seasoned with memories. Blake recognized something he hadn't expected as the night went on. He didn't miss his parents' big house. He didn't care about the bone china or the chandeliers. He had never felt more at home than he did right here. With a platter of hot sauce and honey. 3 months had passed when Zoraya entered into Swan's garden drenched in dirt. 3 months have passed since her name became the subject of a viral discussion. Because people she didn't know online tried to make her seem less important by making fun of her. But a lot can change in 3 months. The library was officially building a new children's section, and Amira's name, the Amira King Reading Room. Blake had contributed to the design by drawing ideas in his own time that would let in more light, color, and room for kids to feel welcome. Zoraya had begun to read her poems at gatherings in her area. Not to be well known, just to talk, to be heard. And even if she and Blake weren't racing to get labels, one thing was for sure, they were there for each other, over and over. Not just in front of others, but also in private. After the cameras left, when the likes ceased being counted. On a late summer evening, they sat on a park bench together, eating ice cream and watching the world go. People with families walked by. The kids played tag in the grass. Zoraya put her head on Blake's shoulder and let out a breath. "You know," she added, "that night, I believed I was going to make a fool of myself when I walked through the door." Blake said, "You didn't." "I know," she said with a smile. "But even if I had, I'm happy I came." He nodded and then glanced out across the park. "Not just you showed up. That night changed me too." They didn't need big speeches. They didn't require ends that were ideal. What they had was real, and maybe that's what we can learn from all of this. There will always be people who don't like things. People want to put you in a box based on your worst moment, your past, your attire, and your name. But what about your value? There is no question about that. It's how you act. It's in the decision to keep going. When you're embarrassed, stand up. To talk when other people wish you to be quiet. To love, even when the world tries to convince you that you're unlovable. Zoraya's story isn't about going viral. It's about what happens after the moment passes. It's about grace, strength, and choosing to connect instead of judge. At Hidden Worth, we believe these are the stories that matter most. If this tale made you think of your own strength or someone else's, please share it. Because maybe someone out there is standing in the rain right now, wondering if they should turn back. And your voice could be the one that brings it back to them. To go through the door anyway.